Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to a USA Prepares. We're delighted you're here. And we're broadcasting from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains, 2 hours, Monday through Friday. There's a call-in line, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. And if you'd like to listen, take us with you as you travel, there's a listen line, 605-562-40. No, give you a different one. 605-477-3249, 605-477-3249. We've got multiple listen lines, and I just wanted to give you the one that's on top of my list. Today, we're going to be talking about pickling 101. We'll be talking about fermented foods, pickled eggs, fatted eggs, and how you can do these yourself. Food preservation. And then we're going to talk about society in collapse, a case study. Geraldton, Western Australia. With us today, Guineith Isaacs. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you today?
Very, very well. I want to tell our class what happened yesterday, in case you're wondering where I went with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. We had a lightning strike, a massive lightning strike hit the farm. And it destroyed a bunch of our equipment. It took out, it took out a couple Ethernet switches, took out a computer, monitor, router, and one of the things that I did when we built this house was I put some of our network equipment in metal enclosures, kind of like fire alarm boxes with those hinged steel doors. And so the network switches are in those kind of boxes, protected. And even inside the box, the metal box, the network switches were scorched from this massive lightning strike. So we've got to crawl around this weekend and take a look at the roof and see if there are any holes in the roof and see how many of our electric fence chargers were destroyed. But yeah, we took a, I would say, pretty darn close to, if not a direct hit right here. And other electronics were destroyed as well. So yeah, it can happen. It took us a day to get the equipment, get the spare equipment that we had already configured and up and running. And it took the network utility guy to come out and replace whatever he had to do, as well as, in terms of ground wiring and those things that were in the ground, and attenuators for surges, and replace the router. So that's what happened. And, it can happen at any time. And we can go off the air, and fortunately we had enough equipment to get back on the air, but eventually, if this keeps up, we're going to run out of spare parts. So that can happen. So, Guineith, we're going to talk about pickling and sauerkraut and pickled eggs and fatted eggs, and then we'll talk about society in collapse. So, how do you want to start?
Okay, I think I'll start with the sauerkraut because, first of all, the reason why I'm talking about this. The other day you mentioned on the air, on one of your broadcasts, or it might have been on your page, I can't remember, that you were looking for somebody who knew about these things. And this is kind of an old area of knowledge We've been living without refrigeration now here for about 4 years, just under 4 years. 4 years next February, and you've got to have some way to accumulate, a food supply that's not going to go off. Okay, and so I just started researching how to pickle stuff, because once upon a time nobody had refrigeration. And sauerkraut's a good one because it's really, really simple. And a lot of people think of sauerkraut as being used for cabbages and kale. It can be used for that. It can also be used for basically any garden vegetable. Now, the most important thing with any sort of preserving is hygiene, hygiene, hygiene. Okay? You've got to use boiled and cooled water. Okay? For some types of preserving, you have to you've got to boil the water. But with sauerkraut, what you do is you boil the water and then make sure that it's cooled down to around about blood temperature. Okay? Now, this recipe will go for a gallon jar. Okay? So that's 4 litres. While your water is boiling, what you do is you get your vegetables and you cut them up, and or before you cut them up, obviously, you wash them. You make sure that they're really, really clean. You can even rinse them in vinegar if you want, if you really want to be very, very clean about it. But it's not absolutely necessary. What you can do is you cut them up into around about, if it's leaves of cabbage or leaves of kale, you can actually preserve them whole. A lot of people from like Central Europe and Eastern Europe and Germany and Austria, they actually do preserve their kale leaves and cabbage leaves whole. But I think that it's easier, unless you're specifically going to do it that way, if you cut them all up into about 1-inch square pieces, okay? And you get the pieces, and you cut them up while you're making the water boil. Then, when the water has boiled, and when it's cooled down to around about lukewarm temperature, into that 4 litres, that's 1 gallon of water. Actually, for a gallon jar, you would probably only need about 2 litres of water, but it's probably a good idea to have the 4 litres, because you may need to top a bit extra up. Okay, so it's best to make the 4 litres of water, then you've got extra and it doesn't matter. You put probably around about 2 or 3 teaspoons of salt and about 1/4 of a cup of raw milk. Okay? The raw milk is the absolutely key ingredient, and that is why you do not put the vegetables into the boiling water while it is still boiling hot, because that raw milk has the culture in it that will actually make the sauerkraut. The 2 teaspoons of salt just stops the culture from going out of control. You make sure that the salt is thoroughly dissolved before you put the 1/4 cup of raw milk into the mix. You mix it all together, okay, and then what you do is you pack the vegetables into a 1 gallon glass jar. I suppose you could use a stone jar if you have them, or, ceramic or whatever. But, we use big glass jars around here. Whenever I see them in the op shop, I snap them up for this purpose. Until you put the vegetables into the jar until you get quite close to the top, probably about an inch or so from the top, and then you pour the culture in on top of it that you've previously mixed, okay? And then what you do is you have some sort of thing where you can weigh the vegetables down so that they don't float. And then for the longest time we were using something like an old thermos lid on top of the culture, just to keep them under the water. But you could use, I don't know, just whatever you happen to have around, but you must make sure that it's not going to react and make anything toxic. So, nothing made of, for instance, aluminium. Nothing made of anything that's actually going to contaminate your culture, okay?
And it must be clean as well, yes?
And it must be clean. Everything must be absolutely clean and sterile. So the 1 gallon jar has to be sterilized, and you do that by getting a big a stock pot, and you put probably about an inch or two of water in the bottom of it, and so a stock pot big enough so that the gallon jar can actually fit inside it, and then you put that on top of the stove. You put about an inch or so of water inside the glass jar. That will stop it from cracking, and it will keep it weighed down, and then you boil the water for about 10 minutes, okay, and that sterilizes the glass jar and the lid as well. Everything must be absolutely clean, okay? And once you've put all of this in and the liquor, you do the lid up and you leave it, okay? And the cultures in the milk will start to digest the vegetables, and after 6 weeks you can start eating it.
There you go.
And it's done.
When we come back, tell us, what do we do once it's ready for consumption? How do we keep it? We'll be right back. Guineith Isaacs is with us, and she's in Australia, and she's been living without refrigeration for about 4 years, and so when you attempt that, and when you live off the grid, there's certain things that you're going to have to do if you want to preserve food. So we're talking about pickling, and we'll talk about pickled eggs and fatted eggs and fermented sauerkraut. We're talking about fermented sauerkraut right now. So Guineith, once you have the sauerkraut ready for consumption, how do you keep it so that you don't have to eat it all at one time?
Well, this particular recipe, you keep taking it out as you need it, and as long as your utensils that you're serving with are absolutely clean, okay, you can just keep taking it out. And because it's a living food, okay, it's got the same bacteria in it that are in your gut, okay? Mm-hmm. So you see these ads for probiotics, and they say, well, we've got so many billion bacteria in these little tablets. Well, sauerkraut has these same bacteria in it, and that is what helps to preserve the food. It's actually a probiotic living food. It's super nutritious, and as long as your utensils are clean, you can keep eating it over a period of weeks or however long, and just take what you need and then put the rest back.
So
and you can
you don't need to put it in jars?
What was that? Sorry, you don't have to
you
put it in jars. I suppose you could if you wanted to,
Mhm.
but it's not absolutely necessary.
Yeah, I think I'd like to put it in jars, and
You can do it that way.
Mhm. Okay,
You can do it that way.
clean
But
type canning jars. Okay.
yeah, that's right. You can put it that way, but you just once again sterilize the jars,
Mhm.
and using the same method that I said before.
Mhm.
But you just cool them down and get a clean serving ladle and ladle it into the jars, put the lid on, and then put them in the cupboard.
You know, we were talking about bacteria, and I asked Dr. Shealy. I have a couple of large dogs, bunch of large dogs, and I said, one of them slobbers in the dog bowl, and I asked him if I could take that slobbery water. I keep changing it many, many times a day. If I could take that water and water potted plants like that are for food with that, and would that bacteria, that beneficial bacteria, help break down the soil? And he said, absolutely. So what I do is I take the dog's water bowl and empty it into like the garden or wherever we're growing food, and it seems to be working. So you're talking about beneficial bacteria. So I didn't want to gross anybody out, but I just want to share that it works. Okay. What about
dog saliva? Is absolutely remarkable stuff. It really is. We have a number of dogs here. I breed I breed border collies, and I have an idea I have an aim to be able to breed a miniaturized sheepdog for people on small holdings. Because the sheepdogs that you have, which are the normal standard size sheepdog, they're big. They eat a lot. If you've only got 10 or 20 sheep or goats, or just a few cattle or whatever, you probably would need a full size sheepdog if you were going to round up cattle. But if you've only got 10 or 20, sheep or goats or whatever, and you're only moving them once a week, that's not much work for just one or two sheepdogs. But if it's a smaller dog, if it's only 12 inches or less at the shoulder, then it could double as a lap dog, and you could have it actually as a house pet. Well, that's what I aim. But dog saliva is remarkable stuff. It's so, the Scottish people would often get the dogs to lick their wounds and they would actually heal.
There you go. Guineith Isaacs with us. Guineith, when we come back, please share your website with us. We'll be right back.
Okay, thank you.
Class, some may call this a pre-election gun and ammo sale. It's October 22 and 23. Kansas City, Missouri. That's the RK gun show. October 22 and 23. And some people think that should she be selected, gun prices are going to go up. So you might want to consider topping off your ammunition and supplies and accessories, and maybe even purchase a gun. Guineith Isaacs, how do we get to your website or your Facebook page?
Okay, my Facebook page is www.facebook.com/Aussie Common Law, AUSSIE COMMONLAW, and that is the Common Law Education and Resource Centre, and that's where I do a lot of my common law work. But I'll tell you how I managed to get into that, okay? That was a number of years ago. I used to live in Geraldton in Western Australia, because that is where my whole family is from. The first members of my family arrived in Geraldton in around about 1926. So we'd been there for a long time, and we had, bred up. And if you go to Geraldton today, we need to hire the Veterans Association Hall, which is called the RSL, Returned Services League Hall, if we need to have a family get-together, because there will be several hundred people show up. And Geraldton, in a lot of ways, is a lovely town, okay? But just lately, it's really started to have some problems. And, oh gosh, the local police are absolutely, totally corrupt. That, I would say, is probably about three-quarters of the problem, and the other quarter of the problem would be the local municipality, which is also totally corrupt, and apparently just about to go broke. I have my son has just arrived back from Geraldton after spending around about the last 9 months or so there, and the report that he's brought back with him is not good. Apparently, a very high proportion of the young people who live in Geraldton actually have syphilis, because there were a pair of pedophiles who were living in Geraldton, a man and a woman, and they were abducting children, doing whatever they do to them, and then letting them go home. And so they were, instead of, catching them and, killing them, they would catch them, molest them, and then release them. And this pair of pedophiles had syphilis. And at the time, when we were living in Geraldton, these pedophiles were stalking my son, and I tried contacting the police numerous times, and they did absolutely nothing. And finally, in desperation, I made 2 YouTube videos about these pedophiles, and that got the police's attention, all right. They came and arrested me for making these YouTube videos, naming and shaming and requesting that the police go and arrest these 2. Because they lived 200 metres from our house, and I was a stay-at-home mum. I had a vegetable garden and I had a goat pen in the suburbs of Geraldton, and a chicken pen and a pigeon pen, and I would spend my days in my backyard looking after my animals and looking after my vegetables. And I would hear the screams of the children as things were happening to them, and it would be about between 2 and 3 children a day, and the result of that is now you've got a whole generation of children around about my son's age, so between 12 and 18 years old, and a high proportion of them have syphilis. And, Vincent, that dooms a town. These kids have no future. Syphilis is only treatable if you get the antibiotics quickly. Otherwise, the infective, whatever it is, goes into the spinal fluid and it goes into the bones. Once it gets to that stage, it cannot be treated with antibiotics. And it, over a period of 10, 15, 20 years, it leads to insanity and then death. It dooms a town when you have that many young people in the town with a disease like syphilis. The whole thing could have been prevented if the police had gone and arrested this pair. They knew who they were, they knew where they were, they knew what they were doing, and they did absolutely nothing. And you know what? Oh my gosh, the my son's, my brother, my son's uncle, he lives in one of the poorer areas of Geraldton. And if you are, walking around the streets, you can absolutely just smell the hemp farms in the backyards. That's the only economy that people can, organise themselves with, is growing hooch in their backyards. And the backyards that don't stink of hemp, a lot of them stink of meth labs. So they're growing hemp, they're growing meth. Not growing meth, sorry. They're brewing meth in their backyards. And, it's just so sad to see. It really is. Because right next to this, you have an absolute millionaire's alley of, marina, expensive yachts, high-class restaurants, luxury apartments, gated communities, and it's complete, absolute poverty and desperation on the one hand, and just complete, five-star luxury. And then you've got another third area of wannabes, okay, which was the former high-class suburb of Geraldton, which was called Tarcoola, okay, and Point Moore, which was the former high-class area of Geraldton. And it's, I would say it's stepped down a rung or two, but it's where people, go when they, or I would say middle class. But Tarcoola and Point Moore, like Tarcoola is quite literally only probably about 500 metres from Rangeway Utakara, which is where you get the meth labs, which is where you get the, the hemp farms, which is where you get the riots on the streets, a certain proportion of nights of the week. And it's terrible to see.
Are you saying that the drugs and the sexually transmitted disease are the ruination of Geraldton?
Well, yeah, but ultimately they both go back to police corruption, because the syphilis epidemic was initially spread by one pair of pedophiles, one pair, and the whole thing was just swept under the carpet for years. And the police could have stopped it. The police knew in Geraldton that this pair were infested with syphilis. They knew that they were going around molesting kids left and right, and they did absolutely nothing, and it's just absolutely disgusting. And this is what a serious problem police corruption is. And this is, the fact that when I was arrested for making these YouTube videos about this pair of pedophiles, by the way, if anything happens to me, friends of mine have the names of these pedophiles, and they will be named and shamed on air. Okay.
Yeah, make sure they call. Make sure they call me.
Yeah, I will. I'll tell them to call you if anything happens to me, because there was a woman who lived at a place. What was it? Port Denison, I think. I'm not sure of the name of the place, actually, but it could have been Jurien Bay, it could have been Port Denison, but a holiday sort of fishing village, probably about 80 kilometres south of Geraldton. And this woman, it's really very sad what happened to her. Her name was Heather Glendinning, Glendinning, and she had 2 children, and she had a really, really nasty boyfriend, and his friends. It's not even certain today what happened, but what the police found was her and her 2 children in their holiday home that they lived in permanently, and they all had their throats cut. And there was blood everywhere, and the police in Geraldton said that she had killed her children and killed herself, and it was not true. And a friend of mine, Wayne Glue, knows the full story.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought.
Background.
We'll be right back. Guineith Isaac's with us. Guineith, I posted a link to your Facebook page on page number 1 of usaprepares.com. So, class, if you'd like to get to Guineith's Facebook page about common law, just go to usaprepares.com. It'll take you right there, and then you can bookmark her Facebook page. Guineith, as a parent, I see red just thinking about this. And I don't want to say exactly what I would do. However, I don't think it'd be pleasant for anybody involved if any of this happened to any of our children. So my question is, why haven't the parents meted out justice in their own way to these pedophiles, these perverts?
They don't have guns.
Uh-huh.
As far as
well,
I can see,
you take 10 people. Yeah, take 10 people and just go visit them.
Well,
okay?
If they
don't have
then
guns.
the police will actually arrest them because the police have guns and the locals don't.
Hmm. Well, there you go, class.
Nutshell.
That's why you need to make sure
you in
can
America
protect
must not
yourself.
give up your guns. Okay? Anyone who has firearms here, you've got to have a really good reason. And even if you do have a gun and you go around there and you mete out justice, it's going to be blamed on you. And you are going to be dragged through the mud. And you're going to have an absolute dickens of a time. I mean, they arrested me and made my life hell for simply posting a YouTube video exposing these 2. 2 YouTube videos exposing these 2. Okay.
What were they? Were they pillars of the community? I mean, what was with these 2 people that made them so significant? I mean, were they in government?
From what I gather, the woman, because it was actually a woman and a man, the woman was actually related to a former state premier, state governor. Okay, but we don't call them state governors here, we call them state premiers. So, because she was the 3rd cousin of the son of a former premier, that was the reason why she had developed a certain Teflon coating. And because this son of this premier had his own skeletons in the closet as well, it would have blown the whole thing wide open.
Well, there's this thought in the United States that if Hillary is selected against our will, justice will be meted out all across the country. And people who have been causing us harm will be selected for special treatment by the villagers. I mean, I keep hearing that. I am not looking forward to that, but I keep hearing everywhere I go now, people are livid. They're absolutely furious. I saw a woman traveling in her Cadillac sport utility vehicle, and she had a Hillary sign on it, and I thought, I can't believe it. This car has not been bludgeoned with a sledgehammer. How is that possible that this woman's riding through, our area here with this offensive Hillary sign?
Yeah.
It's
Hillary's
and class, make no mistake. Anyone who supports Hillary is an enemy of the villagers. Anyone who supports Hillary is an enemy of ours. They want to steal from us. They want to confiscate our weapons. They want to totally dominate, control, and oppress us, and it's unacceptable. So they are, people who support her are our enemies. I make no mistake about it. No one who supports Hillary is welcome on our farm. No one. Guineith, we didn't talk about pickling eggs and fatted eggs, and oh boy, we'll have to do that next time.
Yeah, I think it's the end of the hour. I'm sorry I didn't manage to get to the eggs, but I thought the Geraldton situation as a case study was more important.
Yeah.
You know,
very good.
This is why police corruption is such a bad thing. It destroys communities. It really does.
And I keep hearing that there are so many good cops. And okay, all right, just
Why don't they
show
go
us,
and arrest
show us
the bad
one.
Why don't
Show
they
us
go
one.
and
Right,
arrest
you're
the bad
absolutely right.
Yeah.
Guineith, thank you so much for being with us.
Okay.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, hour number 2 of USA Prepares. I'm Vin Finelli, and with us is Rich Scheben. He wrote a book, One New York Man's Journey to Off-Grid Living in Montana. Welcome, Rich Scheben.
Well, thank you for having me, Vince. It's always a pleasure.
Rich, I was thinking during the introduction of this hour number 2, I was thinking about, us in the kitchen, you and Rick Miller and Matt Stein and John Stadtmiller and Aaron Dakins and a whole bunch. Ed in Florida was with us. There were a whole bunch of us just laughing and having a great time. And I miss that. I really do. It was a lot of fun. So,
yeah.
What
America needs to do is sit around the table with a fire and have conversations instead of being addicted to the blue light syndrome. In fact, that's a study that I quote all the time, that the average American watches 7 to 8 hours a day of television and smartphone activity. And we need to get back to the old ways, no doubt about it.
You're talking about smartphones, and I was thinking about, I was giving a presentation with Matt Stein. We had separate presentations. Rick Miller and Matt Stein and I were at an event. And Matt Stein and I stayed in the same room at the hotel. We shared a room. And I don't have a cell phone, so the likelihood at that time in my mind of me being tracked was kind of limited because, well, the hotel knew I was there, and I did not use a credit card for the room. The room was provided, so I didn't, I wasn't attached electronically to this room, other than me being assigned this room at the hotel desk in the hotel computer system. But I did have an iPad with me, and I used the iPad to connect and to their Wi-Fi. And the second I did that, my MAC address for the iPad registered me with their network. And there is an application that will track where people are by the use of Wi-Fi. So if you think that, you don't have a tracking device on you because you don't have your smartphone, well, if you do what I did, and I didn't know it at the time, now I know it, but I didn't know it at the time, that I could be tracked by that particular device. Why? Because it has Skype on it. So if I'm traveling and if I want to do a broadcast, I can put a headset on and use an iPad and broadcast right from an iPad. It's kind of convenient because it's a nice small package. But darn it, now I don't want to take that with me. It's an outrage. It's an outrage that we are tracked everywhere we go. And I don't
Well,
like
if
it.
I can comment on that, Vince, the censorship and surveillance that comes along with today's technocracy is not for the benefit of the people. In other words, it's not for the benefit of the bottom 93% or the middle class that is melding in with the poor. It's just like, it's analogous to Twitter, and Facebook, and Amazon, and the censoring that goes on. In fact, that's one of the reasons I wanted to be on your show today. And I know most of your listeners are probably aware of James O'Keefe with Project Veritas. In fact, he's even filed a suit in the last 24 hours against the DNC and the FEC. And he's come across sting operations with his company, Project Veritas, that basically the top Democrats, or I should say globalists, because basically they've inherited the new title. Creamer is one of the top people who's been to the White House 340 times. They have been caught antagonizing and inciting violence against Trump people on video. They are caught rigging the election on video. And some of the things that they're doing is they're even getting caught basically having women antagonize men on lines in the open so they can show that Trump people are violent, which is just the opposite case. In fact, one was a 69-year-old woman that Trump supporters says was cold-cocked, and the video created by Project Veritas and James O'Keefe pretty much debunked all that. They've admitted dead people are voting, illegal immigrants are voting. They've admitted busing people all around the country to vote 3, 4, 10 times. They've even admitted they're doing this for 50 years. And if any of you watched the Al Smith dinner in New York City, I believe it was in New York City, and seen how the elite booed Trump and treated him, it's pretty obvious, folks, that by now, and I've said this in the book, I've said this for years now, the left-right paradigm is absolutely false and phony. The true paradigm is north and south. It's vertical. It's the aristocracy versus the serfs. Now, the first thing we have to do is come to the conclusion that we've been distracted, dumbed down, and divided by every group imaginable. They want chaos. They want infighting. The divide and conquer mentality and philosophy and methodology is alive and well, and they've been doing this for thousands of years, since before the Roman Empire. So what we need to do is make sure we have the same rules, laws, and accountability for everybody in American soil. There's absolutely no doubt that Donald Trump is putting himself, his family, his health, his safety on the line for the average Joe American people, which I am one of. So what we need to do is do more reading, more research, and share this information. But this Veritas, Project Veritas by O'Keefe, really shows that the system is absolutely rigged. And you're going to have Obama, you're going to have Hillary basically poo-pooing that, despite the fact that the video is out there. Every American needs to see this video. These videos have been going viral on drudgereport.com, on breitbart.com, on infowars.com, and if it hasn't been spoken on with usaprepares.com, now it is. Everybody in the world, everybody in the West needs to see how the system is rigged so we can do something about it. Vince?
You're talking about the Alfred Smith Foundation, Memorial Foundation dinner where Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were in. And here's something that Donald said. He said, "We have proven that we can actually be civil to each other. Hillary accidentally bumped into me and she said very civilly, 'Pardon me.' And I very politely said, 'Let me talk to you about that after I get into office.'"
No, there were some pretty good jokes last night. I saw some of that. And,
yeah.
But, I'll tell you something, Vince. The American people can only take so much political correctness. How often can we be the deplorables, the losers, the irredeemables be called extremists, controversial, racist, bigots, sexist, misogynist, homophobe, conspiracy theorists? That's what's going on. We use objective facts. They're using subjective emotional opinion. You can take Obamacare. There's two objectives for Obamacare. One is to kill the middle class and basically put the last knife in the back of the middle class So the middle class is totally melded in with the poor. So it is a true aristocracy serfdom relationship. And the second thing is to create, to have it fail, so a single payer system controlled by the feds will occur. And when we give up people, when we give up common sense and logic for political correctness and corruption, basically it's the end of freedom and liberty. And that's what we're fighting for on November 8th. It's going to be freedom and liberty versus corruption, manipulation, fascism, and top-down centralized control. And that's what we're voting for in a few days. Vince?
One of our instructors, who will remain nameless, and I were discussing something that Hillary Clinton was talking about several years ago. And that was a skills bank and a job bank. And so wouldn't it be wonderful if we could match up people who have certain skills with jobs? And that way, the government can get involved in making sure, well, on the surface, that we're employed. Well, they also have in this database our health records, so they know how old we are. They know they know about our education. They know about our experiences. They know about our skills. They know about our likes and dislikes and so forth. They know whether we have concealed carry permits. They know whether we've been in traffic accidents. They know a lot about us. They have a complete dossier on us, including our images, and they can recognize us with facial recognition. They know so much about us. Well, I was talking to one of the designers of this project, and that designer happens to be one of our instructors. And this was all done on purpose so that later on, if they decide, well, geez, that person, I think we're going to withhold health care from that person. We'll just obfuscate and delay, and then that person will die. We won't treat that person, or we will withhold life-saving medication, and we will rid ourselves of these pests. That would be, people on our team. So it's absolutely true. The tracking is true. What you said about healthcare is true. The design is to reduce population, in my opinion, down to very low numbers. I think they think we are breathing their air as if it's their air rather than all of our air, using all of our resources. We're just a nuisance. And I really believe they want to thin out our ranks. They don't want to thin out their ranks. It's okay that they're pedophiles, perverts, parasites, liars. That's okay with them. It's not okay that we are here to monitor them. We'll be right back. Rich Scheben was Rich. Here's a comment from the dinner, the Al Smith dinner, and Donald Trump said this. Now, I'm told Hillary went to confession before tonight's event, but the priest was having a hard time. When he asked about her sins, she said she couldn't remember 39 times. The way it goes, I've been to confession when I was younger, and it starts out, bless me, Father, for I've sinned. And then, you tell them all these sins that you've committed. And I remember going to confession saying, bless me, Father. Actually, I've been pretty good. I didn't do the part where it says I've committed all these sins, and it's I've lied 27 times or whatever you're supposed to do. I haven't done that, and I just say, bless me, Father. I've been pretty good. And it's funny. I would go to confession with some of my boyhood friends, as people who were raised Catholic would do, and I would do that. Bless me, Father. I've been pretty good, and I would get in and out of confession very quickly. And some of my friends would be in there a much longer time. And then we'd go out and then we would say our penance. We'd kneel down in the pew and say our penance. And we'd compare notes. And I would get way more Hail Marys and Our Fathers to say than they would. And I'm trying to think, they were in there longer than I was. I said I was pretty good, and I get more penance. So how's that work?
Well, I'll tell you, Vince, I'm glad that I'm not Catholic, because if I went into a confession booth, I'd have to bring a sleeping bag and a few days of food. So that being said, you know, and I just want to comment on what you just said. Folks, we're all imperfect sinners. Nobody's a perfect candidate. Nobody's a perfect human. And that's why we are human, because we are imperfect sinners. And I just want to talk about something real quick. You know, me, Vince, everybody that I know, the hundreds of radio shows I've been on, the talks I've given, not one person that I've ever talked to is anti-government. We're anti-unlawful, overreaching, too big, corrupt, foreign-run, foreign-owned, incorporated, central bank-run. You know, we're a constitutional republic. So what we're trying to do here, folks, is just to wake people up so they're not drinking the Kool-Aid of political correctness. And that's why I talk about the same rules, laws, and accountability for everybody on American soil. We're all perfect. I was just watching on Infowars.com the other day how Hillary's chef came on, her travel chef, and she was saying the N-word, N is in November, to black people in front of this black chef. So people are, you know, we're at the point in time, folks, that all we have to do is decide whether we're going to be the divided groups of America or the United States of America. So we have to decide if we're going to hold people's feet to the fire to have the same rules, laws, and accountability for every group. That's the aristocracy, that's the serfs. That doesn't matter what skin pigmentation you have, what gender you have, what sexual orientation or religion you have. So what we need to do is change things from the bottom up. And I know that people are waking up because I hear it, and people are getting angry. People are getting disgusted by the system, and that's one of the reasons I brought up James O'Keefe, okay, and his Project Veritas company, and how he's, through sting operations, showed high-ranking Democrats, and I think we should stop calling them Democrats and just start calling them globalists, on how they are rigging the election and inciting violence. This needs to be, if any of your listeners have not looked this up, you need to look this up. It's on Breitbart.com, it's on DrudgeReport.com, it's on Infowars, or you can probably just Google Project Veritas and James O'Keefe. This information and these videos need to go out to everybody in the Western world, not just America, so they can see how rigged and corrupt the system is. And that goes back to full circle here. We have to have the same rules, laws, and accountability for everybody on American soil. We have a fascist system. Maybe 4 or 6% of the people are self-employed. We have big corporate oligarchies married with big government, and that's one of the reasons why the middle class is becoming extinct.
And we have interlocking directorates. We have corporate directors on several large corporations, so they are interlocked. When we come back, let's talk about Donald Trump. Would he accept the election selection results? Interesting. Rich Scheben is with us. One New York Man's Journey to Off-Grid Living in Montana, available on Amazon. We'll talk about Amazon censure in just a minute. So one of those headlines is Donald Trump was asked about will he accept the election results. And I applaud him for not answering that question. As a matter of fact, I think it's great because he said that he talks about crooked Hillary. And according to the Cliff High, who's one of our instructors here at USA Prepares, he has the WebBot report. He said in so many words, I watched it this morning, Trump will win in a landslide, but the government bureaucrats who are expected to be reluctant to give up their domains, their dominions, in the Trump win landslide. So now don't think that this means that he actually will win. This is just what the WebBot report says. So I think it'd be wonderful if Donald Trump wins compared to Hillary, which I think would be absolutely awful. Most Americans that I've chatted with, no, not most, all are concerned about Hillary. They despise her. They think she's crooked. They think she's just as evil as can be. But Donald Trump said something like this: "I will totally accept the election results if I win." Good for him. And these here's one: the GOP slams Trump not accepting election results. Would they say not accepting the election results would not be in the spirit of the selection? Well, it seems to most of us, if not all of us, that the election is rigged. And what about Al Gore? He didn't accept the election results. Why should Trump? Why should Trump?
I'm really glad you
they
brought
have
that
electronic.
up. I was going to bring that up if you didn't, Vince. He went to the Supreme Court with it. No.
Well, I actually believe that the election is rigged, and I've believed it for many, many years. The conspiracy theorists, as they've been labeled, have been saying that. There's been voter fraud going on for a long time. The Kennedys were involved in it, and I'm sure before them, people were involved in it. But Larry Nichols mentioned on this broadcast many times that Hillary would win, even in the darkest days when it looked like, a year ago when Hillary had no chance of surviving the election, that she would win. And he said that the Clintons play dirty tricks. And what I'm hearing is that they are using all the tricks in their in the book to win this selection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of them is to blame Russia on everything. You got to remember the 6 corporations, folks, that own the media, okay? Mm-hmm. And they use semantic propaganda. They use Hegelian dialect. They basically manufacture perception, guilt, and pity. We live in an emperor has no clothes society. So what we have to do is use objective facts, and when they use subjective emotional opinion, we need to call them on it. And that's one of the reasons I'm being redundant, folks, on James O'Keefe, Project Veritas. He has come out with proof that the Democrats or the globalists are antagonizing and inciting violence, and they are rigging the election. It's on video. It's admitted by a guy by the name of Kramer, who has been to the White House 340 times. They've admitted dead people voting, illegal immigrants, busing people around from precinct to precinct. It's all and much, much more on video and audio. It's out for the public to see in the world. It's had millions of views. It should have 8 billion views by the end of this week, I hope. People need to realize that it really is not a left-right paradigm. It's truly an aristocracy versus serfdom relationship. And if we don't start speaking up, if we don't start talking about the fascist system and how the central banks are controlling everything. Back in 2008, when they printed trillions of dollars, folks, 95% of that money went to the top, basically 1%. All right? This is not about class warfare. It's not against rich versus poor. It's about corruption and manipulation. That's what it's about. People at the top aren't even earning their money anymore. We have 4 to 6% of people who are self-employed for primary salary in this country. We have the big corporate oligarchies that have created an alliance with big government. That is called fascism, which means that the average person, which is the bottom 93% of Americans, doesn't matter what skin pigmentation, what gender, what sexual orientation, or what religion you have, you are not going to be able to control your own destiny, Vince.
Have you heard that Kate Middleton and Prince William are related?
I haven't heard that, but I'll be honest with you, nothing would surprise me these days.
Yeah, here's a post, Daily Mail, August 2010. A dark and deliciously murky secret hovers over the continuing relationship between Prince William and his girlfriend, Kate Middleton, a skeleton so large that even a vast royal closet would struggle to contain it. I'll post this on the website, USA Prepare, so you can read it. Yeah, and how about all the presidents except one being related at some level? Even Barack Obama is related to the other presidents. Do some research, class, and see if you can find that as well. Mike in Tennessee, welcome.
Greetings. I just wanted to cover one little thing. If you ever look at a local community and you find that it looks like the local funeral directors seem to always be in some form of politics, this is one thing I discovered. In Memphis, Tennessee, they've been rigging the elections and stealing voter registration and having dead people continue to vote for generations. This is how they do it. When, let's say, Joe Smith dies, well, the widow is grieving, and the funeral home gets the body. And two things a funeral home has to do, if nothing else, is they have to dispose of the body, whether they bury it or cremate it, and they have to notify the state of the deceased person. So they fill out a form, they send that in so that the state will retrieve the licenses. Voter registration is not one of them. So they take the Joe Smith identity and they call the election commission. They say, "This is Joe Smith. I've lost my voter registration. Can you mail me another?" Sure thing. It goes out in the next day's mail, and the envelopes that the election commissions use are not your standard envelope. In Memphis, Tennessee, they're about 8 inches tall and about 12 inches long, and they have a big green swoosh on them. So you can see them very easily. They're very distinctive. And so they send one of the funeral home workers by to sit there and bird dog Joe Smith's mailbox, and then when the mail is put in the box, they drive up and get it out and take off. Well, the widow, she's busy at that time because the funeral home makes sure she's busy at that time. Nobody notices. So then they've got a pristine, brand-new voter registration card for Joe Smith that anybody that doesn't know Joe Smith would accept at any voter poll.
Doesn't surprise me. They've admitted it on the video caller. I mean, it's pretty obvious that they're getting pretty brazen about, who knows, that might not even go to Joe Smith's widow's mailbox. That might even go to some Democrat liaison and actually get handed to some illegal immigrant.
In 2006, I identified this, I reported it, and the fact that a former Memphis talent, a blues singer, he was actually dead for over 10 years and he was still voting. Rufus Thomas. It's probably still on the internet. Mm-hmm. Oh, and back in 2008, Vincent, you're talking about upcoming gun shows and the relationship to the timing of the election. And the very first commercial that I ever did in 2008, when I had the radio talk show, The Voice of Truth, was from a local gun shop. And I think they paid me $15 to run 3 ads. And this was on a Sunday. My show was on Sunday evening. And I said, today is Sunday. The election is on Tuesday. The only gun shop open between now and then is the name of the gun shop. I said that again. Today is Sunday. The election is on Tuesday. The only gun shop open between now and then. I said that 3 times. The following day on Monday, the gun shop was visited by more people than it had on any Monday, including a representative of the BATF, who advised them that they should not do any more advertising on my radio show, or they would be visited again.
Well, Mike Parsons, you certainly have some powerful words, and people are paying attention. Thank you so much.
Well, I just
and about the presidents, there's about the presidents being related. Here's Here's a post, August 2012. It was a 12-year-old girl who was looking at family trees, and she linked 42 of the 43 U.S. presidents to King John of England, who signed the Magna Carta in 1215. Only one of our presidents is not related to John, and that's Martin Van Buren. All the rest are related. So if we think that we don't have dynasties in the United States, we're mistaken. These guys are related.
Vince, before the last segment, you wanted to ask me a question on censorship with Amazon. I just wanted to remind you about that.
Yeah. Anything else, Mike?
No, that's it. Just wanted to share. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks, Mike.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
That's Mike Parsons, USA Prepares instructor in Tennessee. It's been arrested and jailed multiple times. Spent 5.5 years in jails and prisons as a result of running for office and winning the election. So they don't like outsiders. They don't like outsiders to come in and try to clean up the county. And I have a feeling that that is what all of the concern is about Donald Trump, because he's going to fire people. And Hillary Clinton is probably thinking that jail cells coming her way if he becomes president. So let's talk about Amazon. So you've got your book, One New York Man's Journey to Off-Grid Living in Montana. You can get it at Amazon.com, and they've been censoring you. Can we spend the next segment talking about what they did and how you've been censored?
Sounds good.
All right, that's what we're going to do. We'll be right back. Yes, if you'd like to purchase Rich Scheben's book, One New York Man's Journey to Off-Grid Living in Montana, there's a link on the website, usaprepares.com, page 1. It says Rich Scheben, Off-Grid Living Montana. And also, if you'd like to go to his website, there's a link right there. It's offgridmontana.com. So both links are on page 1, USA Prepares post, right, ready for you to click. Rich, what happened with Amazon?
Well, with Amazon over the past, my book's been out for over 3 years, folks. So what has happened, Vince, is the fact that they've deleted many 5-star reviews. They've had hundreds of people try to leave positive reviews that couldn't. That ended up contacting me through different communications. They said my book was out of stock. They've misspelled my book title, so search engines wouldn't pick it up. And I had a phone call. I'm guessing now the timeline, probably 7-8 months ago. An employee from Amazon called me, and he basically proved it by saying certain things on sales. He didn't talk real long. He was very nervous about mentioning stuff, but he told me that people that he worked with loved my book, and that my information was going to be censored by the powers that be. So what we're doing, folks, this is why I talk about, if you ever heard me on the air, I talk about how we need practice what you preach laws. And some examples would be if you're a proponent of severe gun laws and you're anti-gun and you hire private security to cover your butt, this needs to be red flagged. If you're a proponent of Obamacare and you have private health care, that needs to be flagged. If you send your kids to private school and you're a proponent of Common Core, that needs to be flagged. If you're living green, living lavishly, and you're flying around in private jets and own big houses, and you say we need socialism, that needs to be flagged. What we need to do is have the same rules, laws, and accountability for everybody in American soil. I don't care if they did that to everybody, okay, whether it be Amazon, whether it be Facebook, whether it be Twitter, and all the censorship and surveillance that's occurring in this country. But that's not the case. We have a separate tiered system of different rules, laws, and accountability based on what group you're in, and they're very derogatory, degrading terms because they're based on victim group status and protectionist group status. So what we need to do is come together as the poor and the middle class, as the bottom 93%, as the serfs, the deplorables, the losers, the irredeemables, all the words that Hillary Clinton has called us. We need to get together and draw a line in the sand and say enough is enough. We need to basically eliminate political correctness and have zero tolerance for it. Because when they use these politically correct buzzwords, things like equality, fairness, tolerance, diversity, accountability, these words have been hijacked by definition to use as a tool to divide the American people. That's all it is. And they do not practice what they preach because they have different rules, laws, and accountability, again, based on what group you're in. And that's what Donald Trump is all about. He's about creating these words that have been used like fairness and equality, and actually use them because we've lowered the bars of standards and expectations so much in America, folks, that we're rewarding mediocrity now for decades for these politically correct buzzwords like equality, fairness, and tolerance. Okay, these words don't exist. They are an illusion. So when you lower the bars of standards and expectations, you're saying this group can't compete. This group's work is suboptimal. You are basically destroying the ability, the work ethic, and the intelligence of all these people shoved into these groups. And then because of all the rewarding of mediocrity, things like innovation and knowledge and productivity and everything that built this great country is almost moot. It's non-existent. So what we need to do is go back to the ways that made us great. And we need to get jobs based on hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications, and not by what group we're in. And this is why we need to use those 3 words. If there's anything that you folks don't remember from today's broadcast, it should be we need to have the same rules, laws, and accountability for everybody in America as well.
Let me ask you this. Rich Scheben, are you saying we should do what they do? Whatever they do, we should do it?
Well, if they do it, they set a precedent. Why can't we do it?
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Very good. Rich Scheben, thanks so much for being with us. Offgridmontana.com. As a matter of fact, I think they spelled, in Amazon, they spelled Montana, didn't they?
Yeah.
To help people.
Spelled a lot of the words wrong.
Yeah. Yep. Trying to help people get lost looking for Rich Scheben. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.